1995 was a big year out west, the kind of year that arrived with headlines, hijinks, Hollywood glitz, and more than a few fireballs, both literal and metaphorical. It was the sort of year that seemed to sum up the whole essence of the western United States. Chaotic, dramatic, sun-drenched, and always just one step ahead of the rest of the country in either innovation or total absurdity. From the high deserts of Arizona to the fog-shrouded redwoods of Northern California, the region did what it does best. It made noise, it made news, and every now and then it managed to make history. The year began with a surge of pride and excitement in California, as the state found itself in the national spotlight for all the right reasons. On January 29th, football fans across the West rejoiced when the San Francisco 49ers delivered a commanding performance in Super Bowl 29, firmly establishing their dominance as one of the NFL's premier franchises. With quarterback Steve Young at the helm, the 49ers steamrolled the San Diego Chargers, not only securing their 5th Super Bowl victory, but also becoming the first team in league history to achieve such a milestone. The win was more than just a sports triumph. It was a symbolic unifier for Northern and Southern California, with both ends of the state represented on the game's grandest stage. The victory parade in San Francisco drew massive crowds, while fans in San Diego, though disappointed, still took pride in making it to the Super Bowl for the first time. Meanwhile, far removed from the gridiron glory, the winds of political change were blowing strong in the nation's capital. The 104th United States Congress convened with a Republican majority in both the House and the Senate for the first time since the early 1950s, signaling a major shift in the national political landscape. While these developments were rooted firmly in Washington, D.C., the effects and debates quickly rippled out across the western states. From budget battles to policy shifts, residents of the West began to feel the early tremors of what would become a defining period of political transformation. Still, for many watching from California and beyond, the opening of Congress felt somewhat distant, an insider's game with theatrics and negotiations playing out far from the realities of daily life in the West. A major shift in transportation infrastructure unfolded in Colorado in early 1995, when Denver International Airport officially opened its doors to the public on February 27th. This long-anticipated debut marked the end of an era for the city's previous air hub, Stapleton International Airport, which had served Denver for decades, but was increasingly seen as outdated and unable to handle the region's growing passenger demands. The new airport, built on a vast stretch of open plains well outside the city center, immediately captured attention, not only for its sheer scale, but for its unique and striking design. Its iconic white, tent-like roof, inspired by the snow-capped peaks of the nearby Rocky Mountains, quickly became a recognizable symbol of the region. With this opening, Denver International Airport claimed the title of the largest airport in the United States by total land area, setting a new benchmark for airport planning and capacity. But it wasn't just the architectural flair or the sprawling runways that made headlines. Almost from the moment it opened, the airport became a magnet for conspiracy theories, ranging from hidden underground bunkers to supposed secret societies operating beneath its surface. Despite the speculation, Denver International quickly established itself as a major hub in the West, shaping air travel patterns for decades to come. On March 27, Los Angeles found itself at the center of the entertainment universe as the 67th Academy Awards took over the Shrine Auditorium in a glittering display of Hollywood tradition and star-studded spectacle. The ceremony, hosted by late-night comedian David Letterman in his only stint as Oscar MC, was a mix of awkward jokes and memorable moments that left audiences divided, but undeniably entertained. The big winner of the night was Forrest Gump, the Tom Hanks-led film that had captured the public's imagination with its sweeping, nostalgic take on American life. The film walked away with 6 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Director for Robert Zemeckis, cementing its status as a cultural phenomenon. An astonishing 48.3 million viewers watched the broadcast, making it the most watched Oscars telecast in over a decade and a half, second only to the massive ratings of 1983's ceremony. While Hollywood was basking in the glow of self-congratulation, political drama was unfolding farther north in the Pacific Northwest. In a move that stunned many of his colleagues and angered conservative leadership, Oregon Senator Mark Hatfield, a Republican known for his independent streak, cast the deciding vote against a proposed constitutional amendment that would have required the federal government to maintain a balanced budget. The amendment, long championed by fiscal conservatives, had already passed the House and was expected to pass the Senate as well, until Hatfield broke with his party and sided with Democrats to block it. His lone dissenting vote ensured the measure's failure by the narrowest possible margin, preserving the status quo and igniting intense debate across the country. Hatfield's stand drew both praise and criticism, but it underscored his reputation as a lawmaker, guided more by personal conviction than political pressure. Tragedy struck California in a jarring and deeply unsettling way on April 24th, when a deadly package exploded and claimed the life of a Sacramento lobbyist. The bomb, linked to the elusive domestic terrorist known as the Unabomber, served as a brutal reminder that acts of terror weren't confined to far-off nations or foreign extremists. They could, and did, happen right here on American soil in the heart of the West. The attack came just days after the devastating bombing of the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City, which had already shaken the country to its core and sparked a nationwide conversation about security, extremism, and the fragility of peace. In California and throughout the western states, there was a noticeable shift in the public mood. People mourned, paid tribute, and stood in solidarity with victims near and far. But beneath the surface, there was also a growing current of fear and tension. The idea that such calculated violence could erupt in familiar places, in government offices, suburban streets, and public spaces, cast a long and somber shadow over daily life in the region. San Diego found itself at the center of national attention not once, but twice in the span of just a few dramatic days. On May 14th, the city played host to the prestigious America's Cup, one of the most celebrated and historic yacht races in the world. Crowds gathered along the coast to witness the high-stakes competition, where Team New Zealand dominated the waters, sweeping the American crew in a decisive 5-0 victory. The loss stung for U.S. sailing fans, but the event itself brought international flair, economic buzz, and a surge of pride in San Diego's role as a world-class host city. However, the celebratory atmosphere took a dark and surreal turn just 3 days later. On May 17th, a shocking and unprecedented incident unfolded when Sean Nelson, a former Army veteran and struggling local resident, commandeered a 57-ton M60 Patton tank from a National Guard armory. With no ammunition in the weapon, but raw destruction in his path, Nelson rumbled through the streets of Claremont and Kearny Mesa in a low-speed, high-impact rampage that left a trail of crushed cars, flattened traffic lights, and stunned bystanders. The chase lasted for roughly 20 chaotic minutes before the tank became lodged on a median. Police officers climbed aboard and shot Nelson to end the ordeal. The incident was deadly, bizarre, and seared into San Diego's collective memory. A surreal snapshot of chaos in a city better known for sunshine and surfboards. In mid-June, the Olympic spotlight turned westward, at least in spirit, when Salt Lake City, Utah, secured the winning bid to host the 2002 Winter Olympics. The announcement came on June 16th and marked a major victory, not just for the city, but for the entire western United States, beating out several prominent international contenders vying for the honor. The decision brought a surge of excitement and pride to the region, with promises of infrastructure development, tourism boosts, and a chance to showcase Utah's snow-capped peaks and hospitality on a global stage. Local officials celebrated it as a once-in-a-generation opportunity, while residents began imagining their hometown as a future hub for athletes, fans, and media from around the world. Meanwhile, down in California, the so-called trial of the century was dominating headlines and living rooms alike. In Los Angeles, the O.J. Simpson murder trial reached one of its most unforgettable moments. During a tense courtroom demonstration in June, Simpson struggled to fit into a pair of gloves believed to have been worn by the killer of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman. The awkward public fitting instantly became a flashpoint in the case. Defense attorney Johnny Cochran seized the moment with a phrase that would become legendary. "If it doesn't fit, you must acquit." The line not only underscored the defense's central argument, but also etched itself into American pop culture and legal history, echoing far beyond the walls of the courtroom. The West Coast that summer was caught between the promise of Olympic dreams and the drama of a real-life legal saga watched by millions. In 1995, Colorado scored big on the national sports stage when the Quebec Nordiques, a Canadian hockey team with a loyal but financially struggling fan base, relocated to Denver and transformed into the Colorado Avalanche. This move marked the official arrival of NHL hockey in the Mile High City, igniting excitement among local sports fans who had long awaited a major professional hockey franchise of their own. With the team's arrival, Denver's sports identity expanded beyond football and basketball, and the Avalanche quickly built a strong following, laying the groundwork for what would become a storied and successful tenure in the league. Meanwhile, Oregon found itself back in the national spotlight for reasons far removed from sports or celebration. A long-running legal saga tied to the Rajneeshi cult, an eccentric and often controversial spiritual movement that had once taken over the small town of Antelope in the 1980s, came to a dramatic conclusion. Two of the cult's members were convicted for their involvement in a chilling assassination plot that dated back a full decade. The case was a sobering reminder that the state's quiet rural areas could harbor stories as wild and unsettling as anything found in a big city. The Rajneeshi saga, once considered a strange historical footnote, returned to public consciousness, renewing questions about power, influence, and the vulnerability of isolated communities to extremist ideologies. In the world of technology and pop culture, August 24th marked a major turning point when Microsoft officially released Windows 95 to the public. While the launch sparked excitement across the entire country, nowhere was the anticipation more intense than in Silicon Valley, the heart of the tech industry. The region buzzed with energy as software developers, computer enthusiasts, and everyday users braced for what was being hyped as the next big leap in personal computing. Long lines formed outside electronic stores throughout the West Coast, with eager customers, many of them self-proclaimed tech nerds, camping out just to get their hands on the new operating system as soon as the doors opened. Windows 95 promised a sleek new interface, the revolutionary start button, and improved multitasking that would make personal computers more accessible and powerful for the average user. For many in California's tech corridor, this wasn't just a software launch. It was a cultural moment. With stacks of floppy disks in hand and beige boxy monitors at the ready, thousands of users installed the OS in their homes and offices, hoping to ride the wave into a fully digital future. The excitement was real, but so was the stress. Countless hours were spent debugging, installing, and explaining the new system to less tech-savvy coworkers and relatives. In true Silicon Valley fashion, the release of Windows 95 was a chaotic blend of innovation, hype, and high expectations, setting the tone for the digital explosion that was just around the corner. In Phoenix, Arizona, the normally sun-soaked calm was disrupted by a case of international intrigue that seemed more suited to a Cold War spy novel than the late 90s. On September 23rd, Guillermo Gaede, an Argentine-born former employee at major semiconductor companies like Intel and AMD, was arrested on serious charges of industrial espionage. Authorities alleged that Gaede had secretly passed sensitive technological information, some of it classified as high-tech trade secrets, to foreign governments including Cuba, China, North Korea, and Iran. The information he was accused of leaking was believed to be worth tens of millions of dollars and had the potential to compromise national security. The case stunned the tech industry and cast a spotlight on vulnerabilities in corporate and government cybersecurity at a time when the digital age was just beginning to accelerate. While Arizona dealt with the fallout of spycraft and international betrayal, Salt Lake City, Utah was witnessing a spiritual moment of lasting significance within the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. During the church's semi-annual all-women's conference, LDS President Gordon B. Hinckley stood before the congregation and presented a formal document titled The Family, a Proclamation to the World. This was not merely a sermon or a passing remark. It was a bold and deliberate articulation of church doctrine regarding the nature of family, gender roles, and the eternal importance of marriage between a man and a woman. Delivered with solemnity and clarity, the proclamation quickly became a cornerstone of modern Mormon teaching. It reverberated far beyond Utah's borders, influencing not just church members, but also shaping discussions in interfaith circles, public policy debates, and grassroots movements concerned with family values. For the LDS Church, this marked a significant declaration of beliefs during a time of rapidly changing cultural norms, and its influence continues to echo through both religious and secular communities to this day. It was a wild and unforgettable baseball moment in the Pacific Northwest, the kind of event that stitched itself into local legend almost immediately. The Seattle Mariners, a franchise that had spent most of its existence languishing at the bottom of the standings and being dismissed as perennial underachievers, finally broke through the ceiling of expectations. On October 2nd, in front of a euphoric crowd, they clinched their very first postseason berth by defeating the California Angels in a dramatic showdown. The game was more than just a win. It was a cathartic release for decades of disappointment. The kingdom erupted with the kind of noise and energy rarely felt in its concrete walls, as fans who had long endured losing seasons finally had a reason to celebrate. Across the Pacific Northwest, from small-town bars in eastern Washington to crowded living rooms in Portland, people erupted with pride and relief. For the first time, Mariners fans could look at October baseball not with envy, but with joy and anticipation. It was a new chapter, one that suggested the team and the region might finally be taken seriously in the national sports conversation. But just as hope bloomed in one corner of the West, fear and confusion descended in another. On October 9th, tragedy and mystery struck when saboteurs deliberately derailed the Amtrak Sunset Limited near the remote town of Palo Verde, Arizona. The train, traveling through the dark desert night, suddenly left the tracks due to manipulated rails, resulting in a deadly crash that killed one and injured dozens more. The attack sent shockwaves through the nation, but it hit especially hard in the West, where vast rural stretches are often assumed to be safe from this kind of violence. The derailment raised immediate concerns about security on the nation's railways, especially those running through isolated areas with little oversight or protection. Despite an intense federal investigation and national media coverage, no suspects were ever apprehended, and no group claimed responsibility. The case remains unresolved, a chilling and unexplained act that left behind more questions than answers. Even now, years later, the derailment of the Sunset Limited lingers as one of the most baffling unsolved crimes of the decade, an unsettling reminder that even in wide-open spaces, danger can strike without warning. Las Vegas made national headlines once more in November, but this time it wasn't for its casinos, neon lights, or high-stakes gambling. On November 7th, the city witnessed the dramatic implosion of the Landmark Hotel and Casino, a once iconic property that had stood as a symbol of vintage Vegas glitz and old-school charm. In classic Vegas fashion, its final act was explosive, literally. With crowds watching from a safe distance, the structure came crashing down in a carefully planned demolition. What replaced it wasn't another glittering resort or entertainment venue, but a parking lot, underscoring the city's ever-evolving, sometimes irreverent relationship with its own history. In Las Vegas, reinvention isn't just a theme, it's a way of life. Later that month, on November 22nd, innovation took center stage in a completely different realm. Toy Story, the first feature-length film created entirely with computer-generated imagery, premiered and captivated audiences across the country. The movie, brought to life by the creative minds at Pixar, headquartered in Northern California, wasn't just a visual breakthrough. It marked a turning point in animation and storytelling. Pixar's groundbreaking use of technology merged seamlessly with heartwarming characters and a clever, emotionally resonant script, setting a new standard for animated films. The release of Toy Story didn't just entertain, it signaled the beginning of a new digital era in filmmaking, one that would ripple far beyond the Bay Area and leave a permanent mark on Hollywood and global cinema alike. As the final days of 1995 ticked down, Northern California quietly said goodbye to a beloved piece of pop culture. On December 31st, the last original Calvin and Hobbes comic strip appeared in newspapers, marking the end of an era for readers who had grown up with the philosophical musings of a spiky-haired boy and his tiger. The Bay Area, a region rich in creatives and storytellers, felt the loss more deeply than most. Fans clipped the final strip, shared nostalgic conversations at coffee shops, and lamented the departure of a cartoon that had brought both joy and depth to the funny pages for a decade. Meanwhile, the federal government's second shutdown of the year was in full effect, bringing a chill of its own across Nevada, Utah, and California. National parks were shuttered, museums locked their doors, and many government workers were either furloughed or reporting for duty with no paycheck in sight. From Yosemite to Zion, visitors were turned away or left wandering the perimeters, wondering when things would open back up. Even in Las Vegas, where time doesn't seem to matter and the lights never go out, the impact was noticeable in federal services and slowed tourism logistics. Still, the West had a way of shrugging off the chaos. People adapted. They hiked lesser-known trails, flocked to local attractions, and found their own ways to keep busy while Washington sorted itself out. Yet despite the disruptions, there was an undeniable sense of momentum building. The West Coast in particular was on the brink of something seismic, not geological this time, but cultural and technological. In Silicon Valley, whispers of a coming digital revolution had turned into a steady hum. Dial-up modems buzzed in countless homes, and tech companies sprouted like weeds in converted warehouses and suburban garages. The new frontier wasn't gold, it was information. West Coasters, always a few steps ahead of the curve, or at least pretending to be, were beginning to sense that the internet wasn't just a novelty. It was about to reshape everything. Looking back, 1995 in the western United States felt like a mixtape. Chaotic, energetic, sometimes disjointed, but unforgettable. It was a year of tank rampages down the streets of San Diego, mysterious train derailments in the Arizona desert, and unexpected playoff miracles in Seattle. It was also the year Silicon Valley began laying the groundwork for a connected world, and Salt Lake City quietly prepared to welcome the world to its snowy peaks in 2002. Through all the upheavals, innovations, and oddities, the West kept moving forward, still strange, still bold, and still wonderfully itself.
Come along, let's sing, where the joy will bring. Tune into the beat, feel the magic, it's true. Channel 199 X, we're here just for you, for you.